Welcome to quick edit number 26. Today I'm gonna take this raw file of Jellyfish and I'm gonna turn it into a picture like that in, of course, just about 5 minutes. So this was a picture I shot at the zoo just through some glass, and I really think it ended up pretty good. Now I think it's a little bit dark, so I'm just gonna bring up the exposure slightly, and as you can see, the jellyfish itself looks way better, but the background gets really a little bit too much texture and a little bit too bright, so I actually really don't want any texture in the background, so I'm just gonna bring down the shadows in this case, really not a thing that I usually do, and maybe even bring down the blacks so we just have the jellyfish and everything else is black in the picture. So that looks pretty good. Then let's see contrast. I think contrast works great. Yeah, maybe around 50 contrast. And actually I'm gonna bring up the whites as well. I'm of course gonna hold down the Alt key so I make sure I don't overclip anything, and maybe even go a little bit lower, because even though this is nothing clipped, it's still a little bit bright. So I'm just gonna go plus 19. And clarity. Now clarity really is difficult because I like how it brings out the texture, but it also gives a lot of noise and it makes this very soft jellyfish look very harsh. So I'm actually not sure if I even want to add some clarity here. I think at the end 0 works the best after all. Then let's go to color temperature so we can fine tune that. Now I think it was pretty good where it was, but maybe just a little bit too blue. Yeah, actually way too blue if I look at it. Now this is such an extreme picture, so we can even go into 30,000 Kelvin here and it won't even make the picture look warm. So it's really crazy in this case. That's not something you probably want to do usually. But here it works pretty good, and tint doesn't really have an effect on the color either. So I'm just gonna, play around with it and stick with whatever looks best in terms of shadow to highlight ratio, not in terms of color. So I think we have a pretty cool picture here. Vibrance, I mean, it's definitely bright enough. Then highlights, I'm actually going to bring that up a little bit, even though it doesn't have that much impact in this picture. And I'm just going to play around with the rest. I really want to make this jellyfish look like it glows, and I really want to emphasize this light that we have. So I think we're pretty much done with the picture. Let me go into 1:1 and just remove the actual sharpening that was added by default by Lightroom. Lightroom always adds 25 sharpening by default if you're working with a raw file to kind of compensate for the non-sharpening in camera, but in this case I really don't want any sharpening. And I'm also gonna introduce some noise reduction because, yeah, as you can see, there's quite a bit of grain from the heavy editing that we've done. So I'm actually gonna bring up the noise reduction. And even though it's a tool that I don't really like, in this case it really doesn't even do anything bad to it, because these jellyfish don't really have that much texture in itself. So it looks way cleaner, especially the background. And I think I'm pretty much done. Now there are some little spots in the background here. I actually can't just see 2 right now, but of course that would be something you want to make sure that you clean that up before you export the file. For example, if I go here 1:1, there are still some blue dots, but because this is of course a 5-minute quick edit, I'm just gonna leave it there. So this is before and this is after. Now this is definitely not a huge difference from before and after. We really just brought up the texture and kind of made the background, brought away this blue cast and made it even darker, so the contrast between the jellyfish and the background of course is way higher. So thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope you have an awesome day.